Hey, we're here at the Ibanez booth with Andy Timmons, and Andy, it's great to see you. And
great to be here. Hello.
I wanted to ask you about the Pepper album because were you surprised that it got the critical reception it's been universally raved about, and were you really expecting that, being it's kind of a risky thing to do aesthetically?
Obviously, that was my hope, but you never going into it, and even when I was doing the arrangements and even during the recording process, my confidence would ebb and flow. One day I'd think, wow, this is working, and the next day I go, I'm not even close. I can't even think about doing this. But it was such a fun process that I just kind of kept after it. I kept tweaking on it. Literally, after a couple of years of working on the arrangements, that's when I felt like, man, this might really work. But in the back of your mind, as a hardcore Beatle fan, I know how critical I am of Beatle cover material, and I'm generally not the biggest fan of that kind of stuff. So I knew where I was going with this, and I knew that I had to feel really right about it. Just obviously sonically, arrangement-wise, but the spirit had to be there. And so what I'm hoping, and what people are hopefully connecting with, is the spirit of, I didn't do it for commercial reasons. You know, I don't care if we sell 30 or 3 million copies, but I'm giving it to my Beatle friends. You know, it's like anybody that, especially of our age group, that grew up with that material and has ingrained it as much as we've listened all our lives. You know, it's such a part of us. So that interpretation being done the way I did it, I'm getting some great response from just some of my best friends that are, amazing players, but they're Beatle fans too. But even, yeah, you're right, the Beatle community itself, that's the exciting thing, because obviously I'm happy that I've got a little fan base of my own, but I don't consider this a guitar record. It is by nature of it's a power trio doing Beatles songs with no overdubs, but I don't consider, it's not really about solos and flash. It's about really a loving rendition of these songs, and I think it's connecting with the fans of the Beatles that not necessarily would ever buy just a guitar record. Yeah. So long story short, it's been overwhelmingly positive. Nobody's thrown tomatoes at me yet. Yes. Ringo might. Who knows?
And then you had. The story's kind of funny because you mentioned that the arrangements took a couple of years and that was a long-term process, but the actual recording of it came down rather quickly. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I was in the studio with my trio, the Andy Timmons Band, Mitch Marine and Mike Dane on bass, and we were in the studio actually recording a new batch of instrumental originals, a new Andy Timmons Band record. And at the end of the sessions, we were finished. We had 14 tracks. We got them done. Then 2 extra days became available. The guy, our co-producer and engineer, Rob Wexler, said, hey, somebody canceled, we got 2 extra days. What do you got? And it was Mitch, the drummer, said, well, what about the Beatles stuff you keep talking about? I'm like, yeah, I'm ready if you guys are. So in 2.5 days, literally, Mitch and Mike got basically all their tracks. And I got half of my tracks live. So there's a lot of live spirit on the record. There was about half the tracks that I wasn't happy, either performance or sometimes sonic or sometimes tuning. By the nature of how I did the arrangements, and because I'm playing a guitar, for one, as we know, the guitar is an imperfect instrument. Add distortion to that and it magnifies all the impurities of tuning and the issues you have with fretted notes and open strings. And by the virtue of that, without overdubs, I'm having to support the melody with chords and notes, and it can be a challenge tuning-wise. So there was half the songs that proved to be more difficult in that fashion, but I took this, so literally about another year of on and off, working on it, and then I felt like I had it. So.
Right. And how about the effects? How important were the effects and your approach to the production in getting the sound, in addition to the arrangements?
There's no doubt it played a huge part. I mean, a large part of my sound has always been echo, whether it's tape echo or whether it's digital echo or analog. There was 4 amps on the whole record. There's 4 Mesa Boogies, 2 Lone Stars, and 2 Stilettos. On the Stiletto side, I had 2 EP3 Maestro Echoplexes with a tube driver before that for my lead tone there. Then on the Lone Stars, I have my BB preamp into the Lone Stars, but then with a GeForce TC Electronics. And I employed on that, I don't use a lot of chorusing in my sound generally, but to kind of replicate, if you're familiar with the Beatles recording techniques at that time, they came up with something called automatic double tracking. And it was a way of manipulating a track with another tape machine. It kind of added an out-of-tune kind of chorusing effect. And they would add that to the vocal a lot on guitar. So I would try to replicate that sound by like using the chorus, or even just to replicate a layered, like a double track vocal, with one guitar. Well, if you add the chorusing to it, it kind of gives it that performance, that sound. So yeah, I printed most of my effects. Sometimes we'd add a little bit of extra echo here and there, but I commit to it as I go. Some people think I'm crazy for doing that, but I like the sound of that echo coming from that same speaker in the guitar cabinet. I mean, you can print it separately. Doesn't feel the same to me. So it's just my personal preference. So, but I take a lot of time in getting those levels right. If you record with too much echo, you can't take it away, but you can always add it back. So I'm conservative, but it's in there quite a bit, especially with the tape, you know. So.
Okay, so we are at a NAMM show, and we are at the Ibanez booth. You want to talk about your signature model?
So this guitar was built for me February 14th, 1994, Valentine's Day. And it's been my main guitar ever since. And Hoshino and Ibanez did a limited edition in 1999, I want to say. They made 175 guitars, mainly sold in Japan. But then that was it. So it kind of became a collector's item for a while. But they approached me about reissuing the guitar. And I was actually, there was a period where I wasn't officially associated with Ibanez. I came to it, it was kind of influenced by my relationship with Mesa Boogie, where there's no contractor agreement or paper saying you must play these amps. Their philosophy is, if you love our amps, play them, and we're happy to help you any way we can. You know, if not, that's cool too. So I was kind of feeling that way about my guitars because I love all guitars. I can pick up any guitar and it's going to inspire me in a certain way. So I let the contract lapse with Ibanez, and I was just kind of playing other guitars. I have a large collection of vintage, and thanks for I do a lot of studio work. But I kept coming back to this guitar over and over. This is my, you know, I've got 8 other Stratocasters. None of them play or sound like this. I mean, you know, at the core, this is Leo's design. You know, it's a maple with some alder, but it's, you know, some modern appointments. The neck shape is a bit different. It's rounded like a vintage guitar, but not quite. You know, it just fits me personally. So I kept coming back to this guitar, and about that time they approached me and said, "We're thinking about reissuing the HC100, but making it available worldwide." I said, "Well, the timing's right because that's all I'm playing right now." And so then it made sense to do it. You know, I'm very sensitive to, if I'm going to do anything as a signature model, I need it to be exactly what I'm playing. So we spent about a year with the prototypes, and at many points I could have compromised on things to make it a cheaper guitar. And as a business, you have to consider these options. But again, I wouldn't have felt right putting it out there if it wasn't exactly my guitar, and they got it right. In fact, there's a couple of tracks on the new record where on this old guitar, I've got the tremolo really on the deck. I can't raise the pitch any. And so, but there's a couple of tracks like Within You Without You, where I have a bit of an Indian treatment. And so, very influenced by Jeff Beck, I wanted to get a little bit of raise and lowering. So they had made a guitar for me. Actually, just it was a factory. It was like one of the prototypes they sent to me for the factory in Japan, you know, for approval. And I used that. I set that up with a floating trim. It actually sounds better than this guitar. But this is the one that I've got the wear and tear on. But that guitar just, it's sang and it's had this beautiful thing to it. So that's what's on the Within You Without You track. So they got it right, and I love it. I'm really happy. Yeah.
So what's in store for 2012?
Hopefully, well, I'm going to piece together some stuff in the States. I got some touring coming up back in Europe. Some more stuff with Olivia Newton-John. We're going to Australia at the end of February. But the next date I have with the trio in the States, I'm going to be playing at the Iridium in New York with the Les Paul trio. It's quite an honor to be asked, and I'm really excited. So I'm going to do a set with the Les Paul group, and then my band's going to play Pepper and the rest of stuff, you know. So I can't wait. But the goal would be is the more the record gets out there, the excitement builds a little bit. Then I can get out and tour it and play the whole record, start to finish, and then some of our older tunes that maybe the older fans want to hear, you know.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, Andy Timmons, thanks for spending time with us. Good luck to you.
Thank you, man.